What really works to manage your career? How do you communicate effectively with your boss and colleagues? What do you need to move up? Learn practical tips and tools to make your workplace journey smoother, more enjoyable, and efficient. Next on Living Smart. Welcome to Living Smart, the show designed to help you get the most out of life. With a doctorate in human resources development and 2 degrees in linguistics, Dr. Karen Otazo has become a pioneer in the field of international business coaching. Her career spans 20 years in the energy sector, where she focused on organization and talent development. For the last 17 years, she has been an executive coach for CEOs all over the world. Currently, she serves as the executive director for Citizens for Affordable Energy, an advocacy firm that promotes energy security solutions for the nation. She speaks 5 languages, and one of her many business books, The Truth About Managing Your Career, sums her international, educational, and linguistic experience to cover all the bases about careers with the truth you can use. Welcome to Living Smart, Dr. Otazo.
Thank you, Patty. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
That's great. Let's start with the first one, which is the truth about starting a new job. How do you do that?
You start a new job carefully and thoughtfully by giving yourself about 90 days to talk with people and to get the lay of the land. You want to know your boss, you want to get to know your boss and what he or she expects, but you also wanted to know what's it like in that company. That is the absolutely most important thing that you do, is you try not to move too fast. So you learn and listen. But the second thing that's really important when you start a new job is you let go whatever you'd done in another job. Because you can't walk in and say, oh, but this is the way we used to do it in XYZ company.
I've heard that before.
Yes, and it's hard because that's what you've learned.
Right.
But you got to act as if this is a new country, and you're gonna when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
That's right.
Yes.
And you said the third one?
And the third one is it's really important to start talking with people and getting their opinions,
right,
so that you start your network.
What about trust? That's huge. Who do you trust when you first start a new job? How do you know who to trust?
You got to test it. And there's 4 kinds of tests. You actually have to test whether they will get something done. Let's say there's a secretary that is, works for you and other people. When you give her or him something and you say this is the deadline and you write it down, do they do it? Do they do it properly? But you have to also figure out if someone has expertise. When you go to the secretary or to the lawyer or to the human resource exec, do they have the expertise to answer your questions? And that's expertise trust. Yes, and there's other kinds of trust as well.
What do you have to do to get noticed for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
What do you do when you first start your job?
To get noticed.
People, to get noticed.
You actually get noticed by asking questions and asking opinions and then feeding it back to people.
Okay.
You can talk with them and you can present their ideas. You can actually write it out. And when you put something in writing, that's the best way to get noticed.
The truth about working with bosses. This is a very big deal.
Yes.
You can have a bad boss or you can have a good... Let's talk about bad bosses. How do you work with a bad boss?
You have to work out what they want, because they're not going to tell you. No matter what. It doesn't matter. The boss is right.
That's right. The boss is always right.
And I actually remember a boss who would get just his eyebrows would just kind of scrunch when he saw me, and he didn't understand what I was saying. And I suddenly realized he needed it in writing.
Okay.
So I put... if we had a meeting, I would put everything in writing. I would lay it all out with enough space for him to write. And that eyebrow scrunch went away because he was not perplexed. He could understand what I was talking about. And this was very, very important because he then later said that I learned so much working for him.
What about a boss who micromanages you?
The boss micromanages. Your job is to set boundaries and push back. If it's I want it done exactly this way, you say, well, And if you want it that way, how fast do you want me to do it? Because if you want it that way, it will take this amount of time. Right. The secret with a micromanaging boss is to give them a little, but don't do everything they say, because you've got to set some boundaries, or you're going to actually drown in those details.
Okay. What about keeping a good boss happy?
You have to figure out a good boss as well. But the most important thing that you do with a good boss is you make him or her look good. Okay. And they're appreciating your skills. Hey, that's lovely. You don't learn as much from a good boss as a bad boss. But in spite of that, you want them to speak well of you wherever they speak. And you have to make them feel good about you, because they know that you understand them, and that you talk with them in a way that says, I appreciate you.
Right. Now, why is it that we'll learn more from a bad boss than we do from a good boss? Why is that?
They're not playing to our strengths. Now, we don't want to live our lives working our weaknesses, but by not having our strengths stroked all the time, we say, whoops, we better round out our skills.
You get better at what you're weak at.
You get better at what you're weak at, usually.
Very important. Managing your career is the truth about networking.
Oh,
very
yes.
important.
Think of a network as a bunch of concentric circles. Like when you throw a pebble into a pond, they're the people close to you. And that has to be a good network of people you can trust, your friends, your family, and not the people at work. You don't talk with them don't let their hair down, so to speak, with those people. The next layer around are the people that you can trust to actually help you, do things for you, that politically won't rat on you about something that happened. So you test those people, but you have to have a large network. You must have a network of people out in Washington, in other countries, wherever you need to get information. You've got to expand your network, and you need to consciously do that every single day.
How does networking lead to your next assignment?
It almost always leads to the next assignment. Networking means that somebody tells somebody else, hey, I know Karen, and she's pretty good at so-and-so. So it's creating the story about you, so you really are able to get into the next assignment, because there are enough people who know about you and not just your boss.
Right.
Because your boss may want to keep you forever.
Right. I doubt it. Expand the networks at work. How do you do that? Because you said, you have to be careful what you say, how you say it, who you say it to.
Right.
But you do have to expand your network at work. It's very important.
The best way that you can expand a network at work is to give people not privileged information, but give people information. Keep them informed. They love that. Ask them their opinion, and go to them for advice. People love that. And then you go and you spend time with your network, so that you may have lunch. You may have lunch with the secretary to somebody important. It's fine. I once had a 2-martini lunch with a secretary in London, and I remember thinking, this is worth it. It's fine. Yeah. Because that person, by the way, the assistants and the secretaries and the lower level people are a great network, because they tell you things that nobody else will.
That's right. You say, and this is very important too, when you're talking about networks and relationship at work, the emotional side of it. Why are emotions like a carbonated drink? That's what you say. Why?
I call them that because I find that, for instance, I can be rather effervescent, and it is good sometimes, and it's not. And if you are too effervescent, then you can spill over, and it's too much. It's
too much information.
And it's too much information, and you're talking too much, and it's like Coca-Cola. It's just like, poof. It's as if you just shook up your Coke.
Right.
You have to be like fine champagne, where there are nice bubbles, and they come up to the top, but it's not exploding out of the glass.
Right.
And that really works well. But if you have no effervescence whatsoever, and you're very much like this, then people are not interested in listening to you.
Okay. You say at work, do not complain so much and do not explain so much. Tell me what you mean by that.
I actually use this a lot. Don't complain and don't explain. Every time you complain, you are actually sucking the energy out of the room. And so complaining, and people hate to hear complaints. We Americans especially, we love to be upbeat and positive. There are cultures that you know a bit of complaining is normal, but not our culture. But you don't explain, because the old joke is, you came and asked somebody for the time of day and they told you how the watch was made. You don't need to explain everything, and the more you explain, the less people listen and the less they think of you. Isn't that amazing?
Yes,
They have found that in witnesses in trials. If you explain too much, they think you're lying.
Oh, is that why you don't want to explain too much? Because people think you're lying, or
They
they
think
stop
you're lying,
listening,
or they
get
stop listening.
bored? Okay.
All of that, yes.
Okay, another very important truth. You have to get noticed at work.
Yes.
That's very important. Let's talk about how you do that the right way.
The two best ways, it's communication that does it. And by the way, women have said to me, well, they dress really beautifully. Will that make a difference? I say, no, actually. They don't want a fashion model at work. They want you to look like your job. So, no, you need to communicate in presentations.
Okay.
Presentations are remarkably important, and especially for Americans.
Okay.
They actually seem to tell people whether you're capable or not.
Oh, okay.
But in writing is absolutely one of the best. And if you do something pretty good and it gets out there, because we all know to this day, we all remember what Thomas Paine wrote. You know, these are the times that try men's souls. He put it in writing, and everybody read it, and then people copied it.
Now, another thing that you brought up is it's important to be remembered for all the right reasons as well.
Yes.
How do you get remembered? What's the best way to get remembered?
The best way to get remembered is by putting something in writing.
So back to the writing.
Back to the
Very
writing.
important.
But you send a thank you note.
Okay.
And you do that with an email. But the old-fashioned kind is very much appreciated by people of a certain age. Many of the executives in our culture came from a time where handwritten notes made a difference. I've been told by many people that a handwritten note made enormous difference to them. A thank you, a Christmas card, whatever it might be, it's worth it to do it.
But you mean also in writing is when you write a paper, you write something that needs to be noticed at work?
Yes.
Or, okay.
When you do a paper at work, you talk about things. A white paper is what it's often called in this country and elsewhere. Is you're telling people about your thinking, and gives you a chance to go up to the next level and explain a bigger picture than where you are sitting in the organization. So that helps people remember you. It really gets you the next job. I have examples of that.
Another truth is criticism works best when it's compassionate.
Yes.
Is there such thing as a nice way to criticize?
Absolutely.
Really?
Instead of criticizing as we think of it in a critical way, what you say is, you know, Karen, you're really not showing us your capabilities in your writing the way you do in your speaking. And so if you could take some of the things when you're speaking and actually distill them into writing in a short way, that would actually be much more effective with us, because your speaking is so much better than your writing, and we want someone who can write well as well. So you're saying you're a bad writer, but you're saying you find something so they have positive so that they have a place to go to. You don't say this is wrong. You say this is where you need to go to. You always give them, and you tell them about what the gap is. So let's say they're late, and you say, what we need here is for you to be here on time every single day.
Right. You focus on the positive and what needs to get done.
And your gap now is about 20 minutes. We're looking for a gap is no more than 3 to 5 minutes.
Right.
And so you give them a specific, you give them the gap, and you give them where they need to go. That is compassionate.
I also have been told that you should ask for permission before you give criticism or give feedback to people. May I tell you something? May I make a suggestion? Well, if you're my boss, you don't have.
Yes, exactly.
If you're a boss, you don't have to ask her anything. You do what you need to do.
If you're a parent or a boss, you have permission. But what you do is you say, but let's go back to the recipient of it. You actually need to think of it as a gift. And when you give someone a gift and it's sloppily wrapped, and it looks really as if you just kind of threw on the latest newspaper around it, then people say, oh, they didn't care.
Right.
You know, if you care enough to send the very best, well, you want to wrap it so that you say it carefully, you say it positively, and you tell them, I'd like to give you some feedback that I'm going to give you as a gift. Would you like to receive this gift?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way of saying it. You know, this leads to another issue that you bring up throughout your book, and that is manners. Having good manners. Give me examples of that and why that is so important in today's world and in your career.
Let's take, going back to the notes, the thank yous and so on. Thank yous are amazingly effective. When you get an email and you don't respond, and even if it was like, oh, okay, I know that thanks, or a little, a little reaction, thank you, please, and manners show that you are capable, you have the graciousness to be an executive. And executives really know this. And they know this if they're really good executives. I'm not talking about the terrible ones. I'm talking about the good ones all have manners because they show an appreciation for other people.
Very good. And that should be for executives or anybody. Everybody. It's sort of a culture, right? I mean,
it is.
Another truth is act dumb and think dirty. I really like this one because I'm not very good at it.
You get much more when you act dumb and think dirty. And this sounds terrible. But when I say act dumb, I mean keep your mouth shut.
Exactly.
Don't act stupid, but just keep your mouth shut and just listen. And then when the think dirty is, are they really doing this because they care about me? Or is there some other ulterior motive? And you wait until they're tested. You've got to keep your mouth shut. If you tell people too much information, then they think less of you. Now, you can't hold it all in. You have to give some out. But you must be careful about how you tend to tell people everything at once.
It's always about balance, isn't it?
It's always.
I mean,
it's
about,
always. Thank you.
Because you want to be authentic,
yes.
but
yes.
you also don't want to say too much. Another truth, what I really liked, is the truth about getting things done. When it comes down to it, that's where we're working. We have to get things done.
There's a whole book by Larry Bossidy on getting things done. And actually, this is a big bias of American industry. We love to get things done. You get things done through other people. There's no way you can do it by yourself. So you get things done by creating that network of people, and you say, can you help me with that? And I can remember once I was doing a network chart for someone. They had like 40 people that they could call on to do things.
Right, right.
That's how they got things done. You can never do it all
Alone,
yourself. You can never do it all alone.
Another truth, good career planning requires to know yourself.
Wow, that's a tough one. And I to help people to do that by actually having them observe themselves, by having themselves sit on a shelf, so to speak, and kind of watch themselves and say, wow, did I do that? But actually almost as if they're watching a video playing so they can understand themselves. And then there are many other ways to learn about yourselves. There are 360 feedback. There's many other ways. But you've got to know yourself well enough so you know when to hold and when to fold and when to be able to step out there or not. And you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
That's why I like the book, What Color is Your Parachute?
I love that book.
About finding yourself first. Before you look for work, you really need to know who you are, what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at.
Absolutely.
Another very important truth is learn to say no. I think most of us, the people who are working in a job and want to do a good job, they always want to say yes because they want to do more, and that is not necessarily a very smart thing to do. You have to learn to say no.
Again, you do this in a compassionate way. If you said to me, Karen, I want this done in 1 hour, and I say, wow, no, I'm in the midst of doing something else, what I say is, I'm happy to do that as soon as I can. And that will be, and I give you an amount of time, because I have to set the boundaries. I go back to your job as a grown-up and as a professional is to say, I can do this for you, and this is how long it'll take. It's always time, it's money, and it's the quality of what you're doing. Those are the three components. So it'll either cost you more money, or it'll take more time, or I won't be able to do the quality. And you say no, but you never say the word no. No is and no and not.
Yeah, you can't say that.
Are very negative. You say, there's a case to be made for doing it this way. I've got a whole.
You have the right words, the verbal words.
Oh gosh, I've written a whole lot on this because you have to be able to just have it jump out of your mouth and say, this is the way that things are done, or whatever you want to do. There are ways of saying it, and I've spent a lot of time working with people on this.
In the world we live in, another truth that we have to deal with is email.
Yes.
And how to deal with email. This is something we're all seeing.
Yes.
The 300 that we get every day. Yeah. What do we do?
Well, if you don't have an assistant who's filtering it for you,
we don't.
then you need to have a filtering system.
Okay. First of all,
and the filtering system, every Microsoft has it. You put it into folders, so you know exactly where they are in the folders. Anybody who wants you to really respond needs to be taught that they put an urgent on it, and there is that designation in every email system. You can put an urgent on it, priority. You look at those first. It has to say it in the subject line, so you don't have to go all the way through it. And if you want somebody to act, it better be at the top of the email. You tell people that so that they don't hide it down to the bottom.
Because you say they don't read the end of the email.
People do not tend to read the ends. In fact, if it's more than one screen, it's all over.
What about basic email? You say you don't want to write these long emails. So is it better to write a bunch of short emails?
This is a tricky one. You want to give enough information, so it is good to give a short email. You should have an action emails and information emails, so people know what they're for. So the action emails get action, and you actually put in the subject line action required. So you should write shorter emails. And if they need background information, it's an attachment.
An attachment, okay.
And sometimes the attachments are very useful, and you want to use them, but you don't need to have them on everything. You need to
write
have
everything.
Yeah.
You also said that you should not answer an email that quickly. You should think about it. Why is that?
Unless it's really urgent, in which case they should have called. If you answer it quickly, servants jump, professionals think and are busy, and so when you respond too quickly, it shows that you are jumping like a servant.
Very interesting. I've never thought of it that way. But another truth is play cards close to the vest. And this goes back to another truth that you were talking about, that you can't just talk about everything and talk too much.
This goes back to many things that I often talked about because it is true that if the more you say, the more that people will grab your ideas, or they will talk about you, or so what you need to do is when you are cooking something, you need to hold those cards close to your vest and not tell everybody, and until the time is right. Now, it's really hard to do because there's always somebody who's working on something who wants to talk, as we know from leaks of all kinds. But there's an old truism that loose lips sink ships. And we don't want to have whatever you're working on sunk.
Okay, so let's sum it up. What are the 3 most important things to remember for managing your career?
Number 1, network, network, network. You must have many networks. Number 2, you need to control or manage yourself. Cut down on the effervescence. Don't get too bubbly. Don't be in control of your body and your mind. And then you also, the third thing that you should be working on is to be working in some way at the next level up. So that you're doing a paper about it, or you're doing some research on it. You do something so that people get that you have more skills than the level you're at.
Always think ahead.
Always think ahead.
Future projects.
Think
or
about
just bring
your
them up.
boss's level, yes.
Come up with good ideas. How do you know you're living smart?
Let's go back to you do something for your mind, your body, and your spirit every day. You know that with your mind, that you are curious, that you're reading or learning. You know with your body that you're taking supplements, that you're eating right, whatever you may be doing.
So you're taking care of your physical aspect
and mental.
And the mental. And how would you do the mental?
No, the mental, that would be reading, and it would be learning, and it would be, I think you should be reading something every day.
Meditating too?
Well, meditating is more the spiritual for me.
Okay.
And so it's your mind, body, and spirit. And for me, the spirit is meditation and prayer. And for those who don't believe in prayer per se, I call it intention. Intention is extremely important. You change everything around you through your intention or your prayer. Your intention is, what I want from this is for the greatest good for all, and this is what I want to have happen. And so you set your intention, and that works miracles.
You know, you said spiritual, but also I think spiritual is being in touch with nature as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's part of the meditation, because just walking, just going out and walking or bike riding or whatever you're doing, that is actually communing with nature, and that is tremendous cleansing for your soul and body. Yeah.
And when you mentioned mental and, of course, reading and all that, are there any sports, like I read that ping pong is really important to get your brain
every single thing that you learn is important. It actually exercises a different part of your brain. And the thing about ping pong is it's very fast paced, and you're having to really concentrate. But you can learn a new language. You can learn an instrument. Whatever you do, it's working your brain. And what we know about aging and brains is the more you work them, the better
It's like
they
a
work.
muscle. It's like a muscle.
It is, and especially if you work something that is not great, that you are not wonderful at. And I actually had the opportunity. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And to learn more about smartly managing your career, go to our website. There you'll find a complete resource list. You can also email us or call us with your comments at 713-743-8513. And that's our show for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember to live smart. I'm Patricia Gras. Have a great week. Sorry, I didn't.
For a transcript of this program, send $6.95 to the address on your screen. Please include the name of the guest.